Most people know Erick Zanardo from the Flame game engine. It has over 10,000 stars on GitHub and powers countless Flutter games. But today, we're not talking only about games. Well, at least not the whole episode. We're talking about what happens when a game developer obsession with pixel perfect visuals meets Flutter's theming design system, and how that turned into one of the most creative design system libraries in the Flutter ecosystem, NES UI. Welcome to Very Good Engineering.
Hey Jorge, hey everyone.
So, Eric, let me get this straight. You are a technical delivery lead at Very Good Ventures. You are a Flutter and Dart Google developer expert. You are one of the engineering leads behind Flame, the game engine that, from what I understand, is not like just a pet project that is just easy to build in one weekend. You've also led, while being at VGV, really complex projects like all the activation demos that we did for Google back in the day for IO Flip, the pinball project, which I still play from time to time, I gotta confess, right? You've also built Dashbook, that it's kind of like the early days of WidgetBook with like a catalog of widgets. You shipping the games under like Cherry Bit Studios. And then of course you have this library like NES UI that is a 8-bit retro video game design system kind of inspired. With all those things, I have two questions. Where do you find time? And the second one, how do you like to be known? Like when people think of you, what it is one thing that you would like to be known about?
Well, the first question, I don't have an easy answer for you. Like, where do I have find time? I just find it. This is something that I do because I like it. So, like, finding time to work on my games, to work on open source is not a challenge because it's something that I do because I like it. So, whenever I have free time, I want to have fun coding something. I just go and work on my games. I work on my packages. But it's uh, uh, like I'm sure everybody would like. I would like to have more time to do more because it's always scarce resources nowadays. And what I would like people to think about, like I never thought about that. That's a interesting way of thinking. Like never thought myself thinking about how people think about me. I guess I just would like that the work that I do, the work that we do on Flame on the open source project is useful.
Mhm.
So it's not like there is a use for what we do for this work that we do. So that's what I would love to directly produce. Like not it's not really about what people think about me, but rather than these things that I do, that my games are fun, that people are having fun with the games, that Flame is useful for people developing games, and that people are having fun making games with Flame. So I guess if I would have to choose, I would say that I would love to think that these things that I work, they are fun and they are useful.
That's great. So before Flutter, you've worked with all kinds of technologies, right? Like I know that you've done a little bit of Java, Ruby. I think even you dabbled with React Native at some point. Uh, I'm glad that at some point you tried Flutter to come back here, right? Uh, but one of the very early things that I know you did when working with Flutter, you started working on Dashbook. That was like the first kind of like storybook like tool for Flutter. That means that you were already thinking about design systems, right? It's like, what is it about design systems that like make you interested in that topic?
Yeah, so I guess it has a little bit to do with my background as a developer. So back in the day when I started working, there wasn't really this separation between backend and frontend. It was just one thing, like you were a developer, and even like when I started with Java, there wasn't front-end frameworks. There was like frameworks that will build everything. And as things progressed, front-end frameworks started to be a thing that's something that really caught my eye. Because even though I really like backend, I like to code as a whole. But frontend, I think frontend got my attention because it's something that is the first thing that the user sees, the first thing that the user touches. I like this interaction to think about this interaction and how to make it easier for the user to use, to make things, prettier, fancier for them to use and all that. So once the development world started to have the separation, I quickly moved to the front end and started to specialize or focus more on the front end. I work a lot with React, and React kind of, at least it is the first time that I remember something like a storybook, like design system you mentioned, was when web was rising and design system were starting to become a thing, and it was just something that I really liked to do, I really like to build. And when I came to Flutter from React, there wasn't much options for a storybook like framework. So I kind of just started building Dashbook because I wanted to have some similar so I could replicate it the same way that I was working with React before, not now in Flutter. And that kind of, so it was like one thing led to another. And then, I started to create Dashboard and create NES UI and things went from there.
That's great. To help everyone understand, because I'm pretty sure that there might be someone in the audience that maybe they've never seen WidgetBook or, I mean, Dashbook in the early days. So, like when we talk about design systems, they might not have like a clear idea in their head. Or we might have people, like if you ask a designers that they live in design systems, that they might be even like get into like the deep end of atomic design and asking you to differentiate between atoms and molecules and whatnot. But for like the majority of engineers that they work with Flutter, what would you say a design system is, and what do tools like WidgetBook or Dashbook will help them to achieve?
Sure. So I always find difficult to explain design systems because the title is already there. Like design. What is a design system? Is a system for designs. So it it's too obvious to explain, and it's hard to expand when the things are traps. But let me try. Basically, it is when you stipulate rules and an organization on how a design should work. So it's not much different from how developers organize their code. It's not like some organize their layers, organize how those layers communicate between each other. We define standards for our code and things like that. So design is basically the same thing, right? So we will say that like colors, that like the red color will be used for errors, the green colors will be used for success. This is a collection of colors that we should use. We should use spacing between elements, things like that. So it's basically a rule set of how your things should look like. And is important because you want to create consistency in our layout, right? So when the user is using your app or website or whatever, uh, they feel familiar with it. They feel comfortable because it is never, it usually is not good when like you have a screen that looks like one way and then in the next screen it looks totally different. This causes discomfort in the user and they will eventually not use your application if they are discomfort. So that's basically what a design system is like a bunch of rules, conventions, and guidelines on how you should, you know, organize and implement your design on how your things should look like.
Yeah. I think to me, like it's one of those that's like you know what it is when you see it.
Yeah.
I agree with you that like trying to explain it right, like well, the name is self-explanatory almost, but then it gets tricky because I think everyone might understand that like basic like what in atomic design they would call atoms, like your basic like design tokens, right? Like font,
Hmm.
family, sizes, colors, blah blah blah. Those are like the super basic building blocks. Then you get to a one more level of abstraction. They would be maybe your buttons, your cards, even some page templates. Like okay, that can go in the design system. But then there's a gray area of like, I have a card with like a primary and secondary action and a text and an image. And I use this template 3 times across my project. Will I make that part of the widget catalog, or is just like a
Yeah.
reusable, right? And to me, like that has been always the fun conversation of like, there's a point too where like if you put too much in the design system or in the catalog, it might be hard to maintain. It might not like feel its purpose of organizing information for easy consumption. But
Mhm.
if you put too little, all of a sudden your design system, like building every page, every screen, whatever, becomes like a little bit of a snowflake operation, and there's no consistency and
Yeah.
cohesion. That's
Yeah,
great.
but what I like about that is that I feel, at least as a developer, that is not very much different from organizing your application, your system, right? Because it's the same way. Like you
Yeah.
have your layers, you have your models, and then you have to decide if something should become a module or not. And then you get in those same philosophies, like it is bit too difficult, it is cause too complexity. So I don't. I feel it's very similar to how we developers organize our applications.
That's so true. I gotta say also that there's countless battles and conversations and arguments on how to organize code.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, Eric, let's move on to NES UI. Um, so I've used NES UI. We built a game for Google Cloud Next 2024, right? It was like this escape room, and you move a character. And we use NES UI a lot. We use a lot of pixel art and all the stuff. And NES UI, for those that they haven't seen it, and I know that you're gonna do a demo later, feels like old retro video games, 8-bit pixel art style, right? What inspired you to work on such a project?
Right. So yeah, like you mentioned, I make games. I ship so many games out there, and for some reason, I like retro games. I like pixel art games. I am obsessed by old Nintendo games, like the NES. That's where actually the NES UI name comes from. So I, I came to Flutter because of game dev, right? So when I started to make Flutter games, I thought to myself, I need to come up with something to make them look, you know, vintage, old school, and all that. So as most of at least most of open source projects that I do, I start to do NesUI for myself or to build my own games. Because I didn't want to every time I would write a new game, I didn't want to write a new button widget button, a new content card, but card widget, and so on and so forth. So I started an SUI for myself to build my games, so I could replicate, also to have consistency between my games, and all that. And that's basically why I need something that look retro to make my own games. I felt, because I was already in the Flame community and I was seeing like this community growing, I felt that make this open source would help other devs. And happily, I was right, because I have been seeing a bunch of projects using NesUI out there, and that's making me happy. So that's why I created NesUI to use on my games, and I made open source so other people could use as well.
I'm very curious about how that process went when you got started. Like, did you compare? Like, do you have like a previous catalog of like old NES kind of like visuals? Did you went based on your vibes? And let's not confuse that with vibe coding, but it's more like, well, I know what it is. 8-bit is like thick lines, pixelated style, so it's gonna be like driven by squares. Like,
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about how you get from what's in your head to then what gets reflected in the code.
Right. So, well, I did a lot of NesUI were built, incrementally. Like right now, I don't know, there are a dozen of widgets, but when it started, it was just a container and a button. Uh, Basically, I do a lot of researches on old games. So I remember myself in Googling like Final Fantasy VI UIs. And I even found websites that are specialized in that. Like I think it's Game UI database. I don't exactly remember the website. but it's a website that they have a lot of screenshots of games and all and whatnot. And I just went there, I started to looking. I even bought myself some books that have like some cover arts for games, screenshots of games, and like a big, what is the word in English for big books? Like almanacs. That that's a word in English.
Maybe, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's an English speaker, so but
Yeah,
maybe
it's
right.
a big collection of, resources about games which I use to study and come up with ideas. I also inspired myself a lot in I think it's called 8bit.css. It was a library, CSS library to make to also have a retro 8-bit like for web. So that helped me also to at least think on what widgets I would like to use first, like why would I that's why I prioritize buttons and all this stuff. And also material helped me a lot because I material is a design system on that powers almost. I don't want to make hot culture, but I would say almost all Flutter applications maybe use material, maybe a few exceptions, of course. Like that I once used for Pertina and all, but I would say that vast majority use
Yeah.
material. So it's very familiar to Flutter developers, and I kind of use it also as an inspiration. Also, like they have buttons, they have containers, they have cards, and so that also helped me to organize my thoughts and choose which cheese I would use, I would build first and whatnot.
Nice. I think this is a good time to maybe like share NES UI, maybe some visuals. So let's move on there because I also have a few questions for you about how you're using material. Because sometimes when people think of material, they go to kind of like those like Android native experiences, right? That is like, oh, this feels like a Android app. Cupertino feels like an iOS app. And sometimes people don't realize how flexible material is in a way that you can build many of the widgets that like are part of NES UI that look like again like pixel art 8-bit. They have a material foundation that you've been able to customize and customize until you got
Hmm.
what you want. So I would love to talk a little bit about that. But like I think for people to understand what NES UI truly is, an image is worth 1,000 words.
Cool. So this is the oops. So this is the project page on GitHub, and this image. I like this image because I think here I try to choose widgets that I thought would better represent that would cause the most impact. So like we have buttons, we have a collection of buttons with semantic types, uh, text input, checkbox, and icons.
Mhm.
A big part of NES UI is icons. I spend a lot of time trying all pixelated icons to include in the library. And if you look further here on its
So
catalog of widgets,
let me ask you just a very basic question. But are these icons like custom painter objects? Are they SVG images? Like, how do you get some of these effects?
right? So this links to another project that I made that is called Minisprite. Uh, we can show Minisprite because it's on the web. Minisprites. So I made this because I wanted a simple image format that I could embed in code.
Hmm.
Why? Because you can't have assets in packages in Dart, right? It's not a possibility. And since the type of image that I do, like 8-bit graphics, they are very slow, and I could easily represent them in a string. I wanted to build a small format to be able to embed icons into NES UI. And one thing led to another, I also created an editor to make that. So uh, this is basically So,
Now I
mhm.
want to ask you about how you build this, but that might be another episode.
Yeah, but basically, like just a random thing, and then if I capture keyboard and I paste it here, you see that it's a big number format. There's a lot to this format, but this is what icons in as you are like strings that contains this format that represents those icons.
Bet that the size footprint of that is pretty much like almost zero.
Yeah, it's very small. It's very small because one of the things that this format does is to compress. So
Hmm.
it identifies pixels that are the same. It kind of describes them in a single piece of information. It's not too complex or advanced, but it worked for what I needed.
So what you do for like to get these icons on SUI is like you go to minispray.es,
Yeah,
design the icon manually over there, and then with that you
paste that.
port the code.
Yeah. So if we go into this, let me open the code for this actually. So it's not it. Icons. There's NES icon. So you see, those are all the icons.
Hmm.
They have a class, NES icon data, but the drawing is here. This is the drawing of the icons.
Man, I this is why I love talking to you. I always learn something new. I didn't know about this, and I was expecting something clever, and you deliver.
I'm glad.
Right, so that's how you build icons, and they have that like 8-bit pixel art stuff. But let's look at a different widget. Let's look at a button, right? Because a button like has also that look and feel, but probably you're
Yes.
not using sprites to do that.
No, this is actually custom painters.
Nice.
Because I mean, I ponder a lot if I should make like a sprite or not. But if you think about it, it's not that complicated. I just have a square and then like two rectangles on the bottom and on the side to make the shadow. So I decided to just go and make a custom painter. If we go to the next button, we should have a custom painter down here. And you can customize, of course. You can just, but the default is just a Dart UI function that
Mhm.
draws some brackets.
I mean, you say that it's easy, but I know that custom painters is one of the things that, especially if you're getting started, if you're not like big into geometry, like first of all, it requires the visual understanding of like you look that and then you're able to visualize like, okay, this is a rectangle, top of the rectangle. Sometimes that like like visual decomposition is what takes people like the biggest amount of time, right? uh but then when you're working here with custom painters, you say that it's easy, but a button, it's not that easy to make because it has multiple states. You can be disabled and that looks
Hmm.
different. You can hover a mouse and that looks different. You can be pressed. You can be long pressed, right? So that requires a lot of like different edge cases to kind of like consider when building this button.
Yeah, for sure. But that's another beauty about choosing to make something old school
Uh-huh.
because it's simpler by nature. Because well, this is a modern code trying to emulate something older, right? And back then, when they made the games back in the 90s, in early 2000s, well, they didn't have much resource as we have right now, so it was simpler. So emulate that with modern code is not that complicated. Of course, it's a lot of code. So if you look at my paint function, you see that has like from line 269 to so a little bit more of 100 lines of just painting code.
I would approve that pull request.
Yeah, gladly I work alone on this project.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like it can end up in a long code, but it's not that complicated. It's just a matter of organize the order that you are drawing your drawing instructions and whatnot.
And then, so this is the button we see that is like pretty much like handmade or at least like custom made from the beginning. But I believe that there's a few other widgets that are like written from scratch that you just like work with material, right?
Yeah. So there is, for example, you meant that they use material as a base or everything from scratch?
No, that you use material as a base. Like I think that for a text field,
Right.
you're using material, for example.
Yeah, I was going to mention first the typography.
Oh, yeah.
Where is the typography in here? Well, I can show in here. I know there is a recent change in my WidgetBook, and I don't remember where things are. Yeah, text. So this is something that I simply relied on material. So material already have these types of typography, right? So it has a body, small, medium, large, display, small, medium, large, headline, so on so forth. So this is simply mm, I applied a different for the pixelated font to it, and that's how NesUI do typography. It don't do anything really, just use material structure, and I just press a specific font that will give me that retro look.
What font are you using, by the way? Did you build the fonts by scratch?
No, I started some fonts in the past, but I never ended because it's a lot of work. But I use Google Fonts, and I choose the. Let me open this because it's the press to this one.
Nice.
And this is cool because this is already provided as a pub dev fonts. So everything that we see here in this fancy showcase site from Google Fonts, we can consume from here.
So
And
when
I,
you include NES UI in your project, it ships Google Fonts that
yeah,
goes press start to be from you without a problem, right?
yeah, Google Fonts are direct dependency of NES UI.
Cool, cool, cool. Man, uh, and one thing that we haven't covered is that, again, going back to this idea of like design systems, widget catalogs, right? You have all your like widget catalog of NES UI hosted on WidgetBook.
Yeah, this is actually I'm hosting myself in a
Well,
Cloudflare page,
mhm.
just because I wanted it to be open to everybody, right? Like I want people to be able to see the catalog to navigate on them. But it's WidgetBook that is powering this under the hood, and it is very cool because you can search. So if I want to check for a checkbox, you can like change the
The theme of, yeah.
things wrong. Maybe this is a bug, but it should be.
No, it's not wrong. When it's light over there, it gets darker on the image, and when it's dark theme, it
Yeah,
gets
but the
brighter
background
because,
should
yeah,
the background should be dark.
yeah.
But anyhow, what I want to show is that like you have some options that you can play with, see how things will look like in different scenarios and whatnot. So it's very useful, not just for me as a developer, because I can use this as my sandbox to develop new widgets, but also for consumers of NesUI to see what exists on the picture.
You know, that's great. Do you think having WidgetBook has helped people to either feel more confident using this UI because they can see without having to try in their project first exactly what they're gonna use? And has it also helped other external contributors to maybe like visually debug or like contribute to new widgets? Like tell me how WidgetBook has helped developers, whether either to consume or to contribute to the project.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it helped it because before using WidgetBook or even Dashbook, I had like my my own gallery that I built real quick just to test some things, and people were like very lost. Like it was common for people to come to my Discord server and ask, "Is there a widget to do this?" or "How would I do this other thing?" And now that I have this NesUI, this WidgetBook directly on my GitHub here, you can find all catalogs here. People find things by themselves, so it helped me to support folks because people can find things by themselves. They don't need to be asking all the time. And I don't mind answering anything, but sometimes I'm sleeping and because different time zones. So it's good to have a way for people to find their way around without me. Easy to support them. Uh, and I also know as a fact as helping contributors because I have had dozen PRs from the community helping here, and they use WidgetBook to make the examples for what they are doing, to find bugs. I have asked a couple of folks to make a reproducible issue example in WidgetBook, so it will help my work as a maintainer as well, because to make my life easier to find a bug and solve it and whatnot. And I think like in my opinion, every front-end developer should use if they're not working with Flutter, they can use WidgetBook, but I'm sure they will have other solutions in their platform. So this kind of thing of Storybook, WidgetBook, it's a must for anyone developing uh, design system or developing anything visual, because you can also make this private and use this to build your own internal widgets and whatnot.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, because I'm sure that there might be teams working on a maybe solo, but also like others working on a large enterprise. Like, when should they consider building like a catalog system using WidgetBook? Like, is there like the type of situation like if you have 10 widgets, no, but if you have 11, have it. You should start thinking about making a design system for your project from the very beginning early on. Is it only that only enterprises and teams of scale should use, or like how do you think about it, and what would you recommend?
I think everybody should use as first thing, ideally, because like if you are building generic widgets and you should, because you don't want to repeat code, every time, you don't want to be so. For example, this is one of my games that I use NES UI. Let's say that I want to test. Uh, maybe this was not a good example, but no, okay, no, this is a good like if I fail the level, let me fail the level. Imagine that I want to test this dialogue.
Hmm.
You see, like I had to go through a match to make the dialogue pop. Imagine when I'm developing this, if every time I do a small adjustment to this widget, I would have to go to the game, fail a level to see the dialogue. By having a catalog that is also working as a sandbox, you can, set yourself for success for productive a lot because you can just mock a situation where your dialogue would show, and instead of spending 30 seconds, 15 seconds to simulate that situation where it should show, you can just see it right away because you mock at that. So as a developer, I think that this is one of the most used things for productivity.
That makes sense.
Yeah, if you work solo, right? If you don't work, if you work in teams, then there are a lot of additional benefits, right? Your teammates will be able to see the catalog to see what they can use, so it helps onboarding. You can share this with designers, so the designers can look at the which is on an individual level, so they can help you to see if something's wrong, something's not. So
And especially with the cloud integration of WidgetBook, right? Like you could even do like visual fidelity testing and like or golden testing from
yeah,
what is in a system like Figma and your implementation, make sure that like it matches perfectly and things like that, right?
exactly. Yeah, it helps a lot.
That's great. Before we stop talking about NES UI to talk about your games, what would you say has been the widget that you had to build for NES UI that gave you the biggest headaches?
Well, definitely the combo bar. No, the drop down menu. This one.
What made it
Just
so complex?
yeah. As for developers will know, there is a drop down menu in Flutter already, but that which is quite complicated to customize for a
Mhm.
variety of reasons. So my first attempt was to customize and try to reuse what material was providing me. It didn't work as I wanted. I wasn't able to integrate the scroll bar from NesUI. I wanted to have this drop shadow thing. So I ended up and made my own version. And this involves using the overlay portal feature from Flutter,
Yeah.
which I won't say it is complex. It is difficult, but it's kind of not intuitive because
Yeah, it's almost a different way of thinking about how you build you.
exactly. So I had to put a lot of thought in how to make it, and also because maybe this is more of a philosophical thing, but drop-down menus don't work great on mobile, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So I spent a lot of time trying to make this work well on mobile. Maybe that was a fault. That was my mistake. I should just reserve this for web, desktop, and whatnot, and maybe thought on something different for mobile. But that's definitely where I spent a lot of time trying to make work well.
No, no, I think your intuition is right. Like if you look at the last few years, like the trend for like this type of displays is more like a bottom sheet where you present the options and it's a little bit more clear, it's
Hmm.
dismissible, it's predictable always where it comes from. So yeah, no, I man, drop downs. Who would have said,
Yeah.
right?
But I kind of felt like that I need to have drop downs because this in a way is an old style, old school component by itself, right? So I felt it. I needed to have one.
Awesome. All right, so you build this entire NES UI system A for fun because I know that you like this, but also because you wanted to use this in your video games and have other developers using it for their own, who knows, video games or apps or whatever. Like that's the thing, like you're not limited to the use case. So let's talk about Terrybit Studios. What is it? Because I don't know if that many people know about this, that you ship your games under that like brand or umbrella or like indie shop, right?
Hmm. Yeah. So I have. This is just my catalog of games, the games that I have shipped on Cherrybit. And basically, Cherrybit is just, uh, I call it studio, but it's more, I wanted it to be a full-fledged studio one day, but right now it's just me, my free time building games. And I became a developer because I wanted to build games. So I have always been trying to build games in my free time and ship them. Uh, and I decided that I want to have a little bit more organized, or like a better organization style thing. So I want to separate my work on Flame, the work that I do on Flame, from the work that I do as a game developer, because it is very different for a lot of reasons to develop an engine than it is to develop a game. Like it's like it's a direct comparison to developing applications or developing SDK like Flutter, a platform. So I want to try this separation. So that's why I came up with Cherrybit. That's where I ship my games. Right now, I shipping games for mostly for mobile, but those two you can also play on desktop. Uh, and that's it. That's what Cherrybit is my dream thing.
Do you want to demo one of them? We're gonna turn very good engineering into a Twitch channel now.
Yeah.
No, but
Sure.
the reason I want to see a demo is because I think that that's a great way to see how NES UI is being used, and also the idea that you can customize probably NES UI as well.
Yeah, true. So I'm gonna show first Pixelado. That's the one that I was using to show you the idea of the dialogue. It is a very classic type of game, type of mobile game where you just need to match, pieces and something happens. In my game, what happens is that the drawing starts to form. So it is a puzzle game. There is not much complication to it. Uh, I like to build like relaxing, chill games like this because I can relate a lot to them. And this is fully implemented with NES UI and Flutter. There is very little flame here. The only flame piece is this square, which is also a nice thing about Flutter. Like I can mix and match a flaming engine widget with the rest of the application.
And I think that these
And
days, one of the things that is interesting in the industry is that I'm starting to see people building games without build engines. Like I think of a game tends to be more casual, but like Water, you could build it without a game engine. But you're also starting to see game engines being used in things that are not meant to be played as a game, as a video console. I think
mhm,
the automotive industry, right, is one in which like, hey, you need like very fancy dynamic animations that are gonna be very fluid, 3D rendering, shadows, all the stuff, right? So
yeah,
having a game engine that is capable of rendering your 3D models is very powerful, even though you are not gonna play a single game in the vehicle. Maybe you do, who knows? But like the reason why you're shipping that is because like in the dashboard you need the model of the vehicle and all the stuff. So I like how
mhm,
you're using like very clever like this idea of like, hey, this can be Flutter, this can be game, and it also changes the paradigms, right? When you're building games, there's a game loop. When you're building apps, you're just painting the page. So it changes how you
yeah,
think about it. And I like that you can mix both paradigms.
yeah. And they are tools. In the end, you have to find the best use for them and whatnot. But
That's
that's it. That is Pixelado. It's just a small puzzle game.
well, I think
And
what that image is going to be at the end.
yeah, it's a way. Let's go to the end. It's almost there. Anyhow, you can download later and see the full way of.
So one question I have for you, right, is that you build Terry Bit Studios. Some of the games are free, some of them paid, but like to me, like the pricing is fair. And I think I've talked to you in the past. It's like, hey, I build these games not really to be greedy and like turn into a comparison, but like you want this to be something fair. If it's successful, great, and you want to have that value of that. Like, why is that important for you?
Because I want to build games. If it were possible, I would love to not worry about money. Like if I didn't have Twitch or pay mortgage and all that stuff, I would love to just build games. Even that we need money to live on and to make a living off. Didn't want to offer my games for free, but also I didn't want to be because above all else, I also play games and I'm annoyed when companies, especially mobile developers, do such aggressive monetization models like presenting 300 ads per second and things like that. Like I hate that, so I didn't want to be that.
Yeah.
So I try to come up with a way that I think is fair, and I still might be able to get some revenue from that is fair. So both Pixelado and Minecat Digger, they are games that there are ads, they are not forced, but you can remove them with a single purchase.
Mhm.
Like so. At least from my experience, I think that's a fair model that might generate me some revenue, but also not annoy the players and not go as aggressive or predatory or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's great. So we're getting to the final section of this episode. Um, I'm gonna bring us back to design systems because, as I said, like you've worked in a lot of like projects, whether they're like personal projects, then you share with the community projects that they were like targeting large enterprises, right? You've seen a little bit of everything. Um, what advice would you have for people that maybe they've never really thought of like, oh, I need to build a design system for my project? What would be like some tips and tricks, also like common mistakes to avoid?
Hmm.
And
So I think that as I mentioned earlier on this talk, like I really think that design system is not that different conceptually of design systems, like a design system not different from design systems. Uh, so it is all about abstractions, I believe, at the core of the thing. So you really need to think about what you abstract or you're not. There are proven models that work that you can study, like you mentioned, the atoms, the molecules, the organisms. What is the name of that model in English? Atomic design. So
atomic
atomic design, it is a proven model for design system. I really think everybody that is aspiring to build design system should read about it. Like everything else, there is no silver bullet, so you might use it like as is, or you might adapt it to a better user case, to our user case. Still is a good starting point for you to understanding at least one way or one of the most used ways of how to organize design system. So that would be definitely an advice that I would give. The pitfalls, the common mistakes that I'd give is try to not over engineering, your design system. I myself fall in that trap many times. Like I start to create a new widget and then for some reason, decided that everything would be customizable. And then I end up with 200 lines of a team data class. Then I realized that it was not worth it. Maybe I should have different widgets. Instead of having a super duper
yeah.
customizable widget, I should have two widgets. And over-engineering is a very common pitfall for all developers, I guess. And design systems not that different. And yeah,
Yeah, no,
that's what I
100.
can think of.
No, you cannot imagine how many times. And I keep falling on this mistake, even though I tell people, like, let's plan hard before we write a single line of code. But then you get a little bit like confident and cocky. You're like, I know what I'm doing. And then two
Yeah.
hours later, like, whatever, it's like, fuck, I should have started like a different way.
That and that's where also like WidgetBook or Storybook tools comes to help, because you can test in real time. You can use hot load from Flutter to quick iterate and see how your reach is coming, and so you can fail fast and realize fast if you are over engineering or not. So that's another good aspect of using those types of tools.
The last thing that I wanted to touch base with you is like the role of open source in your projects, right? I think that for anyone who visits NES UI, and I think actually for anyone that follows your work, you're gonna see that whether it's like open source and public or like something that is like closed source when we partner with clients and whatnot, right? But like pretty much you're gonna see that there's certain standards that you follow that are almost like non-negotiable and enterprise grade. You don't neglect tech testing, you don't neglect like pipelines, right? Like you went through the WidgetBook integration, right? You have full test code coverage, right? And to me, there's an element of care, but also something that people can learn about it. Like, so my question to you is like, how does building in the open can help you be a better engineer?
Well, I think that, well, at first, building in the open helps me achieve that goal that I mentioned, that I think that I want my things to be useful. So if my thing is not open, it's not useful for other people, just to me. Uh, But I guess there is always like it is cool to see people using your thing. So that works a lot as motivation for me to continue working. Because it's it's something that you do in your free time. So it is easy for you to procrastinate or I don't know, go play video games instead of working on these and this being a dead project. So finding motivation is that challenging in these types of project. So building the open gives me the opportunity to see this being used by other people and getting me motivation. And as anything open source, I believe this is always helpful to see other people using, to also see different use cases that I haven't thought of and, like getting insights from people to how to improve, uh, getting people to contribute. So like I mentioned, I had a dozen PRs on NesUI where people had their use case. I didn't have their use case. There were situations where I thought on building a widget, but I prioritized other widgets because they were more pressing for me on my games. But someone had that same need and they went there, sent a pull request and contribute to the project and help the project grow. So that's the classic open source. I like it, the community building something and see it grow together.
That's great. Thank you for sharing those insights with me and with us. And now, before we put a pin to this episode, which it's a lot of fun, and I know that if we got into the territory now of like games and how you build games, like we will record a separate episode for that. But
Sounds
before
good.
we say goodbye, we're gonna do our special very good engineering lightning round. These are just like short and sweet questions that we're gonna help us to know a little bit more about you. Sounds good?
Of course.
All right. The first one, what's your favorite retro game that inspired the NES UI aesthetic?
My gosh. I have so many favorite retro games, but I would say it is definitely the old at least not the old, well they are old. The Super Nintendo Zelda games, The Link to the Past and whatnot. Because RPGs, some people will argue they are not RPG, but that's not the case. Uh, and a lot of dialogues and all that, and a lot of UI. So that's definitely a place where I took. Even the containers of NES UI came from there a little bit.
I gotta confess, and some of my friends watching this will have a laugh at this, but I'm a sucker for track and field games. Like this one that you have to press the button really fast. There's nothing better than like I haven't done this in a while because of kids, but like being able to go out on a Friday night, have like a drink and a bite with your friends, and then hit an old arcade machine and just like can I
Press
make
that button.
yeah, I love those games. Second question: Flame Engine or NES UI? Which one are you more proud of? And I think I know the answer, but
It is. I'm gonna use that annoying answer. It depends, because like I'm not the only developer at Flame. Like we have a big team and everybody has a lot of uh, impact on that. So it is a collective proudness that I have on Flame. See to see how Flame grew and how big the project is, and it also makes me happy to see that the project lives without me. Like to see that it grew at a size that I I could stop working at Flame today and it still live on. So this gives me happiness and all. And as UI, I think it's more like I like working as UI because it's fun. It's hard to put a pin on exactly what, but like it is it is fun and of course I'm happy that people are using and see all that, but it's like it doesn't feel like work on as UI. Like it's fun. It's just like a pastime.
doesn't feel like work. I love that. Um, is there one Flutter package that you didn't build that you wish you had built?
My gosh, one Flutter pack. That's audio players. So Aero Players is a package under the umbrella of Bluefire, which is our group that works on Flame. But it wasn't me that built that, and I did some maintenance there, so I get to learn. It is at the same time such a painful job to work with auto on mobile, but it's also so challenging and cool that I think it would have been fun if I had explored those were if I were one of the first to explore that in Flutter, because it's definitely something fun.
I ask you this question because my answer for that question would be NES UI. Uh, it's one of those in which, like a couple of years ago, actually, I think at that point, either you were not working at VGV yet or something like that, but I had this idea of like, I'm gonna show how you can make design systems that, again, like it's not just material. Like you can build something when we talk about Flutter and the power of branding and all the stuff. It's like that's what I'm gonna do. And I went to just Google a little bit just in case, and there you were with your package. I was like, great.
I mean,
That
you
was
can
the
still
package. Yeah.
you can still make, I don't know, Genesis UI, inspired by another video
It's
game.
not the same thing. Actually, I've been listening lately to a lot of podcasts about the history of video games, and I'm reading right now Console Wars. It's a really nice
Mm,
book about like the late 80s, beginning 90s, and kind of like Nintendo and Sega and all the stuff, kind of like. And I mean, Sega had its moment, but it was very ephemeral. And Nintendo, with
yeah,
ups and downs, I think the 8-bit pixel art of those days, like everyone recognizes that immediately, right? It's
yeah.
great. You've spoken at FlutterCon, FlutterCon Flatout, Flutter Frames. What would be your favorite Flutter conference memory?
I think it was FlurCon Berlin 2023. Yeah, I think so. And I didn't did a talk, but I did a workshop in there. But what I liked the most was the event itself. I know it was a big conference. It were 3 days of event. I get to meet a lot of folks from the community that I have been in touch online for a lot of time, but I never met them in person. I got to meet a lot of folks from BGV that I have been working for a long time, but never met them. It was, and I yeah, it was my first international travel as well. Uh, at least to very far. I had been to Argentina, but it was like I went right into there. So like my first big intercontinental travel was through that event, and yeah, that's the city was amazing as well. So
No,
that would
Berlin
be
is
my choice.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Right, and the last question before we finish the episode today. What are you building next that you can tell us about?
So I have been bouncing between some ideas. Lately, I have been really thinking on making a fully hand draw game. Instead of doing pixel art, I'm hoping to hand draw everything and it try to put in a game and see if it will look like how it would look like.
So you're going to to the complete opposite side of the spectrum now.
Yeah,
Nice.
kind
Well,
of.
best of luck. And as a colleague and friend, hope I get early access preview.
Of course.
Well, Eric, it's been a pleasure. I think for me, talking to you about NES UI, design systems, a little bit of gaming, which I can know there's a lot of pending topics. Like, first of all, like I think that you inspire, like you have a level of joy that, like it's energizing for everyone. But also I think that you're capable of demonstrating like design systems, especially when well implemented and using the right tools, they can help like individuals, teams, companies to move faster. And that even if you're looking at something old, retro, whatever, it doesn't have to be boring. Actually, you can have a lot of fun with it and take it to the next level, right? So I love it, and thank you so much.
Awesome. I appreciate. Thank you.
All right, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode of Very Good Engineering. Bye.
Thanks, folks.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna stop recording.